All right. Yeah. So what are we? 30 minutes. 30 something minutes. Let's see. So that was my set called Vulcan Victory. And I have no real clue where that name came from. It was just off the top of my head one night. I was just mucking around building this set like as a template for a workflow idea more than anything else, and it sort of started to come together. And I thought, well, I've kind of got like the first parts of the first 2 songs here of a set, so I've got to call it something. And just Vulcan Victory came to mind. All these devices now, you know, that come up with these auto-created save names for you, like, you know, tapered bookworm, or, you know, happy echelon, or whatever the hell. I just guess my brain just fell into that mode of thinking, and in hindsight, it's kind of, I guess it's like means something like, well, I don't know, the way the world events are kind of feels like the aliens have won. So yeah, Vulcan Victory. I'll do a separate video, at least I'll try to, just explaining some of that pieces, like how it's all put together and stuff. It's not that complicated. It's pretty straightforward, which is why I want to do a kind of explanation of it, because it looks like there's a lot going on, but there's not really. And anyone could really build up a set like this with, you know, a bit of focus. So yeah, well, yeah, we'll end it there anyway, because I've got to turn a whole bunch of things off. Including that, which is where I'm recording the audio to. It's a Zoom recorder. So the whole mix is coming out of the Push standalone and into the Zoom just as stereo. That's it. That's just that simple. And then there's 3 cameras. There's one behind me. Up here. There's one here, which will capture this, and I don't know how well. And there's this one. Hello. Which is just, I don't know, a 3rd camera. I had a 3rd camera. So I thought, why not have one with like me in it? Because the other one behind is probably going to be recording nothing but my bald head. And this, if you weren't paying attention at home, this isn't even used yet. I haven't figured out a way to incorporate it. I mean, I know some ways that it can come in, but I haven't been able to wrap my head around an extra piece of gear in all of this. Not that there's much going on, but my feeble brain just kind of has hit a bit of a cerebral wall, if you like, with all of it. And it's just basically the Ableton Push and Standalone and these controllers. This controller is pretty much just controlling the mixer for the 8 tracks and the master volume, and a master effects send that just basically puts the effect on the whole mix, and these knobs just affect different parameters of that mix. This is effect sends for the 8 tracks across and the 4 effects. So effect 1 and 2, excuse me, effect 1 and 2 are reverb, effect 3 and 4 is an echo, and the reason I've got 2 reverbs and 2 echoes is I like to make the first one short and bright and the second one long and dark, if that makes sense. So it's kind of like a bit more presence, but not a lingering presence. And but the other one is not as much presence, but a much lingering presence in the mix. These 2 controllers are basically just standalone. Each one controls one of these 4 synth tracks. 1, 2, 3, and 4 is an Ableton Drift synth on each track. And I've just, you know, put a macro thing on each of those that are all the same. And there's 12 macros assigned to these, and I can assign either of these to either of the 4 tracks just by those little buttons on the side that I can press to cycle through the first one, the second one, the third one, and the 4th one, and the color tries to match up to indicate which one that this is controlling. See, red for red, yellow, it's now controlling that one. And so that's just, it's kind of like having 4 synths, but you're not locked to the knobs on one particular synth. And that's it. That's the only other thing that I'm doing here is just triggering the scenes. I'm not even really doing that because thanks to the follow actions, thanks to Ableton released follow actions on scenes recently. So what a amazing thing. We can now sequence our song and say, we want this scene to be like 4 bars and this scene to be 1 bar and etc. And then you hit play at the top one and off it goes. Fantastic. I don't like to put too much emphasis into, triggering different. I'll always just trigger scene by scene all the way down, like through each song. I don't muck around with that too much. Again, it's kind of too much for my brain to wrap around, to be doing this and doing that. So that's great for me. So that's really all I do here is I just go to the top and I just go bang, and trigger, and I just let that run its thing. And it's great because you can see when the clips are kind of reaching a certain point towards the end of them, and you kind of get an idea that the next scene's coming up. So that gives me the ability to know, I'll close the filter, I'll do a nice filter sweep down here because that's happening, that's coming up next. And yeah, it's just 8 tracks, 4 drift synthesizers on the first 4. The second 2 tracks are drum tracks, percussion tracks. Could be like a drum machine or could just be sound effects or bongos or whatever. The 7th track is a pad. It's this instrument, Max for Live instrument called, it's by Fors, F-O-R-S, and it's called, what is it? What is it? Let's have a look. Alpha by Fors. It's this amazing soft synth that you can like modulate the sound a lot. And I've assigned a whole bunch of LFO, so it just moves and morphs and changes a lot. So it's never really, and it distorts and you get these crazy biasing effects and all sorts of stuff. So I like that because it creates a lot of movement where, sort of most of the other tracks a bit more arpeggiated, static kind of sounds. And the last track is just sound effects, just whatever, just like drones that I make or, recordings of birds slowed down, put through granular synth or wind effects or whatever. Basically sound design. It's a sound design channel. It's just to add a bit of atmosphere. And that's really there all is to this set. It's basically, I hit play. I let the follow actions play each scene by scene down. I don't ever touch any of these clips. And there's about the red one here that marks the first scene of the first song. So it's songs down, obviously. And as we scroll down, we can see there's the start of the next song there. Scroll down, here's the next song there, song 3, etc. And the neat thing about Ableton or the push here is that you can go by pages. So I can go page up, page down, and there's song 2, page down, there's song 3, page down, there's song 4, etc. There's song 5. It's pretty cool. I like it. It just I don't really want to look at this too much, and that's really all I touch on the push. The idea is to create all the evolving variances using this stuff. So yeah, that's the set explanation. Pretty straightforward. I haven't got much experience recording these things like with the cameras, so I have no idea if these cameras angles help to give away what's going on or not. I apologize if it's all a bit crap. But if it's not and someone gets an inspirational idea out of this, unreal. I'm so glad that you found this video. And I am going to try and keep doing this stuff, so watch this space. Yeah. Anyway, thanks for watching, everyone. There's probably like maybe, I reckon, 3 people on the internet lucky would be going to watch this. So anyway, yeah. Bye-bye.